Hello everyone! From dramas to webtoons to novels, explore Korea story with us. This is Who Reads Story. My name is An Sung-jin. I'm a news reporter, and today we have another guest back with us again. Please introduce yourself.
Hello guys, I'm Madison Champagne and I'm a film major at the University of Utah Asia campus.
Good to have you again.
Yeah.
Since you've been in Korea for a while now, 2 years, did you say?
2 years, about 2 or 3 years, yeah.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you speak Korean?
I have studied Korean, yeah. So I originally came here as like a K-pop trainee. So when I was a K-pop trainee, we learned a little bit of Korean, like how to read it.
Right.
And then when I came back, I studied at Korean University Language Institute, and then I studied Korean a little bit more in depth.
Would you say you know the basics?
Yeah, I know the fundamentals. Yeah.
No, I feel like I hear you pick up words every now and now and you say those Korean words. So
Yeah.
I feel like you have a good sense of Korean.
I do have a good sense of Korean, yeah. I think, but it was hard to get a handle of the grammar and stuff like that. But I think I got it now, yeah.
Right, which is why maybe our movie today might be a little bit more meaningful and maybe a little bit more in touch with the movie that we'll be talking about today. October 9th in Korea is when Korean was made. The alphabet itself, Hangeul, was made in 1446 by King Sejong in the Joseon Dynasty. And to celebrate that, we celebrate Korea Day, or Korean Day, on October 9th, which is his birthday, I actually believe. And the movie that we'll be talking about is Baemoi, which isn't 100% based on real life, but it still does depict that process of conserving Korean, which is why I guess it might be a little bit more meaningful to talk it with you.
Yeah, sounds great.
Right, so to briefly go over the plot itself, the film Baemoi talks about, as I've just mentioned, how Korean itself was preserved over time. It shows how, people back then created dictionaries to preserve Korean. And most importantly, it really focuses on the human aspect of how people were trying to preserve Hangeul, which is the Korean alphabet. Now, the movie itself is based in 1940, so it is, back in the early days of Korea. And I feel like that historical setting itself was a little bit unfamiliar, perhaps, for those that are not used to it. How was it for you when you were watching the movie?
My first impression? Well, honestly, I feel like when I was first watching it, I mean, of course, when you read like the title and also read the description and stuff like that, I thought it was going to be a very serious movie.
Right.
I thought it was like, oh my God, I'm going to dive deep into Korean, like history.
The history
and everything. And it was like, I thought it was going to be a little bit more serious. But actually, they have a little bit more like comedic relief,
right? There are aspects of it.
And actually, it made it a little bit more like fun to watch. And I guess like that was my first impression. Like, oh, it's quite funny. It's quite fun,
Right.
The characters are quite like, they look so good on screen together. And
right.
It's like, I really liked that.
Even though it is a history-based film, I feel like there's a lot of dynamic into it. And I feel like the actors do a good job portraying it. Not too serious, not too lightweight, but they kind of keep that balance of, yes, portraying that historical aspect of it, but not too serious, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Which is why I guess it's worth watching it.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah. So, by the way, we did talk about this before, but is it based off a true story?
Right, so partially it is. The Joseon Language Dynasty, which comes out throughout the film, was an actual real institute that was back in the Joseon days, but that's merely for motive. As I mentioned, it's not 100% real life stories. Not all of the characters are real. Obviously, some of them are imaginary.
Okay.
And I feel like that's why we should kind of go over each of the characters and delve into them a bit. Obviously, our main character, Kim Pan-soo, he's blind. I don't know if blind is the right word. He just can't read.
Oh, illiterate.
Right, he's illiterate. There we go. Yes, he's illiterate. And he runs errands at the Joseon Language Society, and that's when he realizes the importance of having a language or having Korean, preserving the language or the alphabet of Hangul itself.
Yeah.
And that's how the story kind of unfolds.
I feel like now, like it's kind of hard to imagine that Koreans couldn't even read and write, Because I mean, like Hangul itself is actually, I feel like was one of the easier languages to learn. But I mean, like they were trying to preserve it, and they were trying to like sit there and show the importance of their language. And it was actually quite interesting to see, like, like how that as time passed, I think Koreans have more of an appreciation for their language. Am I wrong?
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
hard to believe or hard to really imagine that, people had these alphabets or the language in front of them, yet because they were illiterate, most of the people, most of the commoners, weren't able to really read or write their own language.
Yeah.
And, right now you really can't imagine that because everyone reads and writes
Yeah,
Korean,
exactly.
obviously, nowadays. And
Yeah.
I feel like it really shows the efforts of people back then that were trying to preserve the language itself. And obviously there were a lot of scenes that may have been memorable, but if there's anything in particular that sticks out to you.
Yeah. So we have obviously the character Kim Pan-soo, and actually he's illiterate, right? So throughout the film, he was kind of like a criminal, he was stealing stuff and stuff like that. So
Right.
Obviously, and I remember in one of the scenes that he said, "I can't read this." And I sat there and was like, what do you mean?
What do you mean you
can't
can't
read that?
read?
Yeah. I mean, obviously for us nowadays, it's like common that everybody can read. But even back then, it's like quite shocking to see that like a lot of people weren't like educated about that. So the scene that specifically that stood out was when Kim Pan-soo actually learned how to read. Like he figured out that he was reading it, and he was like kind of, you could see his expression where he was like, and he had that moment where he realized that he could actually read.
Right. I feel like becoming exposed to a new language where you have no idea what it is how one probably feels when they're illiterate. Exposed to a language, for example, I don't know, any of the other languages that don't have the Korean or English alphabet may seem unfamiliar for people that don't know about it. And maybe as someone who is also in the process of learning a language, maybe that's why it stood out to you even more. Exactly. And we have this other character, Yoo Jong-won, who also returned back from a foreign country after studying. He sees this little kid in the train station who isn't using Korean. Instead, the kid is using Japanese. And I think that's when he realizes, that's when he shook and he's like, oh wow, even though there are these Koreans within the country, these people don't speak their language.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes kind of a turning point for him to work on preserving the language through dictionaries.
Yeah. I mean, I really respected the fact that he was like willing to risk his life, because I mean, there was some scenes where he was being chased by cops,
Right.
and they were trying to find him, and I mean, it made me deeply think about this quote where language is the soul of a person and writing is the life of a person. Yeah.
Very impressive.
Right,
Yeah, no, that is true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I feel like language itself does a good job reflecting the country's identity, which is why Korean or Hangeul within this movie really reflects the identity of Korea as a nation. And I think that's kind of a key point to watch throughout the film.
Agreed.
Obviously, as you mentioned, there is a lot of sacrifice behind it. Making these dictionaries wasn't something that was straight up done in the surface because, Japanese occupation was also taking place back then. And obviously one major institute or organization that played a role was the Chosun Language Society that we've talked about previously. It was established in 1921, obviously with the goal of researching and understanding the language of Korean.
Yeah, like a research group, right?
Like a research institute,
research group,
right? Basically, it compiles, different grammars,
Yeah.
different punctuations, and kind of puts them all together.
What did they
I
do
guess.
exactly?
Right. So to give a little bit, more in depth, as we just kind of talked about with our guest,
With
who
our guest.
probably is unfamiliar with what we're talking about as a language.
Yeah.
Obviously, it talked about, it put all these grammars together, punctuations, as I mentioned, pronunciations, or how you write stuff was all laid out within this organization because they worked on preserving Korean and the alphabet Hangul itself. So for them, it was a job of altogether putting it all together was their job. Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's interesting. And for you, as someone who's learning Korean, I'm sure not everything is easy.
Yeah, for sure. I think like for the hardest part for me is definitely like Korean grammar.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's like the opposite, isn't it?
Right. The way you lay out the
Yeah,
words.
yeah. So like, for example, I mean, I can give an example, but when I was first learning Korean, there was I was in level 1, and there was a thing 학교에 갔어요, right? But I was like, 학교 is school,
Right.
갔어요 was
Go.
and I was like, school go.
Go.
Yeah, I was like,
Right.
yeah. But then when I was trying to learn it, my teacher, she was just like, oh, don't learn it with the English mindset. just learn it like
just learn it the way
as a new slate, you know. And I think that helped me a lot. But I think Korean grammar is still even hard today.
It is. There are, like articles that are difficult, even for Koreans. Sometimes they do get confused on where they put what, and especially apart from what's commonly spoken as Korean, we also have the dialect depending on the region. So you have this thing called saturi.
Oh yeah, saturi. Yeah, I heard about this.
Right,
yeah, saturi.
Right. So,
Busan saturi.
Busan,
yeah.
So if you go to Busan, it's a complete different language. Some people say that it's like not even. It's a different way of interpreting Korean. So within Korean, obviously, we have all these different ways of saying stuff, and apart from the grammar, I guess it could be a difficult language. And obviously within the movie itself, it also kind of delves into it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I thought like seeing the different dialects. I mean, obviously I've mostly stayed in Seoul, so I only hear like Seoul dialect. But one time I think I traveled to Busan and I heard their dialect, and it was like I didn't understand anything. Like the taxi ajashi was talking to me, I was like, oh goodness. Help me.
Right, it's completely different. It's even unfamiliar for Koreans that don't live in the area too.
Exactly, yeah. But it made me realize that everything that we watch is kind of like
all related to modern day, right?
Exactly,
because it reflects the language and the actual national identity and the society, and it all kind of wraps up together. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but to delve in a bit more into it, in 1942 they call this the incident of the Chosun Language Society, and obviously Korea was still under Japanese occupation, and this is when a lot of these researchers or people that have studied Korean for a really long time were tortured just because of the mere reason that we're using Korean. And I feel like from the side or from the perspective of the Japanese, it was more so seen as a rebellion against them because these Koreans were trying to form and trying to preserve their own language, which in a sense also meant that they were trying to build on their national identity, which could have seen as a rebellion for these Japanese people who were occupying the area back then.
Yeah, and it was also quite shocking to me because, I mean, of course, I've never imagined that there would be a day, like, imagine if I was sitting at my house and suddenly someone came and said, you need to speak like...
You cannot speak English.
You cannot speak English, you have to speak this language. And I would feel so like, I can't, it's just crazy to fathom. And I honestly kind of empathize with Koreans a lot on this situation because I feel like it's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it? Yeah, they went through a lot. And I mean, to think that even speaking your language at school is like a crime.
Right, how it's banned.
Yeah, and I saw throughout the movie they had when the kids were caught like speaking Korean, they would get hit with
they would spank them.
They would spank them, and how insane to think that that was even based on real events. That's crazy to me. I just,
Yeah, we talked about how this movie does still lie on certain historical facts, and obviously the Japanese occupation or how they try to limit Koreans from actually using Korean is all true. For example, the original scripts from Korea were all taken by the Japanese. Immediately after the war, even after the Korean liberation or the Korean independence, Gyeongsong Station, which is now the Seoul Station in Seoul, they had about 26,500 scripts altogether, and luckily they were still there in the warehouse for use. So we still have that in record even after decades.
Wow.
Which becomes impressive.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did want to ask was like, for you, I mean, this is just a random question, but I mean, for you, I mean, isn't it as like a Korean, do you like feel like you're really connected with the story in some way? I mean, we did talk about that, but like you personally.
Right. That's a good question. I think it's also because as someone who has lived abroad for a long time, I do think I've always thought it's very important to keep your roots with your country. And I think one important aspect that helps you do it is language, which is why I think it was a little bit more touching when I was watching the movie, because to see that there's so many people that have worked on preserving the language or the alphabet itself, and how that has enabled us to speak the language nowadays is impressive. Because for me, I see these people getting tortured, and I do wonder if I would have been able to handle all that and still, research and study just for the sole purpose of really keeping the language.
Yeah.
And as a Korean, I feel thankful about it. And it is impressive to see it.
Yeah.
And, as we talked about Korean or the language Hangeul itself, what was it like for you, on the other hand, when you were first learning language?
Oh, goodness. I was like around 13, 14. And when I started reading it, actually, my first thought process was that it's so easy to read.
Really? Is it?
Like, even my mom knows how to read it.
Really?
Yeah, I taught my mom how to read it because it was just so easy to read. So, yeah, I thought that my first reaction was, oh, this is such an easy way to read, like the language and the way, like, also I heard that some of the letters
Right.
are based off of how your tongue is.
How your tongue, yes.
That was so shocking to me.
Right.
I was like, what do you, like, Kim Sejong,
Big brains.
big brains, smart man.
That's why people say that Hangeul is such a scientific language. It's because it's based off of how you pronounce sounds or how you say things. And that's why it's easy for people who don't know Korean originally. For them, it's also easy to pick up the language.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we, get familiar with languages that originally seem like pictures or like pictographs. At the end of the day, they are their own alphabet or their own language on their own. And for you, you've obviously, went through that process of learning the language. And even if it was easy, I'm sure there were some hardships.
Yeah.
But what made you start Korean in the first place?
Oh, start Korean language?
In the first place, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people just say they like K-pop.
K-pop, right.
I mean, of course, like I was a K-pop trainee, so I loved K-pop. And then that was kind of the reason why I started. I actually didn't start until I came to Korea. I knew like little words and stuff like that because you always, when you're taking in like a bunch of Korean content, you pick up on some
the
words.
basic words,
yeah.
right.
So that was like, I mean, I was mostly because of K-pop and K-dramas and stuff like that, yeah.
Were there any specific expressions or like words that you picked up?
Yeah. The first word I learned was like, what's it called? 진짜?
진짜.
Yeah. Whoa, 진짜?
Right.
Yeah, they always say that. And I'll be like walking on the street and then like suddenly like an ajumma might be like, oh, 진짜? Yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, at first I was like, oh, really? Okay, that's what it means. Okay.
Right.
But then, yeah, that was like the first like word I picked up on. And then like first like actual sentence was like, it was my survival sentence because like I was like so scared to speak Korean because I didn't know that much. So like whenever like somebody would approach me and they like was asking for directions, I'd be like, oh, 한국어 잘 못해요.
That's such a basic
I'd be like, oh, 한국어 잘 못해요. I'm so sorry.
That's such a critical phrase. I feel like whenever you're a foreigner in a country where you don't speak the language, those are the phrases that you kind of have to know. And I feel like it's so funny because you picked up the word 진짜.
Yeah.
I think it's such a Korean word. You say that in different intonations and it means different things in different moments.
Right, yeah.
It's such a common Korean word to say it. Yeah, it's so funny the way you impersonated it too.
It's like I catch on the way they say it. I'm like, oh.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite word?
Favorite word? Oh yeah, so I was learning it. 소중하다.
소중하다.
Yeah. Precious.
Precious.
Yeah. I think like whenever I heard that word, I'm like, it just reminds me of like my family. Like, oh, so precious, so sweet, And the way that Koreans use it, it's even more like precious, you know? Yeah. Because I mean, it's an important word, and it actually kind of goes back to this film, like how Korean language was.
How it was precious back
then. Exactly right.
It's a loop. We're doing it back then. And for someone who's studying the language itself, and obviously you speak other languages as well, what do you think are some characteristics perhaps for our viewers who don't know the Korean language itself? Maybe you can give some characteristics or delve into what the language is like for you.
Yeah. I feel like the deeper you go into it, it's like you find out way more. Like, obviously, when I was learning Hangeul, you learn about like consonants and stuff like that. And obviously what stands out to me is actually their just writing system. I think it's so smart, like the way that it's laid out. And it's like, because you guys had to take Hanja, because you used to originally use Hanja, right? And you had to take these like really complicated like letters and turn them into their own writing system. And I think like obviously Kim Sejong did a great job because it's easy for everybody to learn, and even foreigners who come here, I think that it won't take you that long to catch up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's impressive for him to go through that transition of writing these Chinese characters, Hanja, and then create this entirely new system of alphabet Hangeul
Yeah.
and make Koreans use that alphabet itself is obviously very impressive. And I think that's why this movie itself is more important, and that's why we obviously chose this movie to delve into it, because it relates to the day when Korean was made, and it obviously kind of gives us a good reflection on the value of the Korean language itself. And the title, if we were to delve into it a bit more, 말보이 means to kind of put or gather words together, because 말 means word and 모이 means gather, right? 모이 comes from the action verb 모이다, to gather. And what do you think the title has of significance?
I mean, I feel like it kind of explains itself, like, 말, 모이, and like kind of people gathering their identities, gathering like their culture, gathering their people. Like, I feel like it reminded me that like we don't want to take stuff for granted, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like 말모이 is like the perfect title they could have came up with, right?
Yeah. In a way, it's not only about connecting or gathering words literally, just to create a dictionary and preserve the language itself, but just as you mentioned, it is also about connecting and bringing in the national identity, the sense of commonality or community for these Koreans who didn't have their own language back then, which is why I guess the title of this movie becomes more significant.
Yeah.
For our viewers out there, as a Korean learner yourself, is there anything you could say, or any tip or advice? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like since the Korean language is so like important to Koreans, like even if you guys learn just a little bit, they will be so thankful.
That is true.
They will, oh my goodness. When I first came here, right? I mean, I have so many experiences that I wish I could share, but when I first came here, I remember I went to like a 편의점, like a convenience store, and I was like, oh, 봉투 주세요. Because I need like a 봉투. Yeah, I need a bag. And so I was like, oh, 봉투. I learned 봉투, and then I learned 주세요. And bag, give me. Bag, give me, please. So I was like, oh, 봉투 주세요. And you know what the 아저씨 was like? Oh, 한국어 잘하시네요. 와. It was like, oh, 이거 너무 예쁘다. Like, they're like, they give you so many compliments. They're like, oh, you're so good at Korean. You're so pretty. You're so like, thank you for coming. They're so sweet. And even if you learn just one little word, they are so happy that you're even learning their language, because it's just so like important to them. And I think that's why I always like, it felt like rewarding. And like, I felt like, wow, I can actually communicate with people. I can actually talk to them. And it felt like, it just felt like good. And I think Koreans will also like make sure you feel good as well when you're learning their language.
I think in a way, Koreans are very generous to people that speak Korean.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one word, as you mentioned, they'll be like, wow, you're so good.
Wow, you're amazing. One word, but you're amazing.
Even if you just say hi, old ladies or like 아줌마s will actually be like, so impressed already just by that single word. And I think that really does come from the fact that these people, because they appreciate the language, they appreciate the people that speak it, obviously.
I mean, there's still some people, like those ajushis and ajumas actually went through this.
Right.
They went through, like, some of them are old enough that they went through the Japanese occupation.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of them have that deep appreciation, and that's why just, like, they're so friendly about you learning their language, because they know what it's like to have it taken away from them. So,
right, that's absolutely true.
Right.
And so with Madison, we've talked about the importance or the values or the virtues of learning the Korean language itself, and obviously about the alphabet too, alongside the movie, 말모이. What was it like for you to talk about the movie and the general, episode? What was it like for you?
I feel like this episode is quite meaningful, because I feel like it's a kind of a way for us to really dive deep into like the history of Korea, and it's really important to learn when you're learning Korean or just coming here in general. It was actually quite fun to talk about, and I feel like it's quite educational for myself too, because there was actually some things I didn't know myself before I actually watched this movie. So
Right. And who would you recommend this movie to?
Honestly, probably my mom. Probably my mom, because she loves Korea. So she loves K-dramas, and I want her to watch not like a K-drama, but something more like history. Yeah, like something that's still like,
right.
you know, so she can get a deeper thought. But I would also recommend it to the viewers out there.
Right.
Yeah, I would love for you guys to watch it if you have the chance. Yeah.
Right. So this movie is on Netflix. So for those who haven't watched it yet, give it a chance on Netflix. And that is all we have for today's episode on Who Reads Story. Next week, we will be back with another episode talking about Korean content. Thank you, Madison, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.